Hello! Recently, a channel named Pirate Software, run by Jason Hall, released a video where he opposes the initiative called Stop Killing Games. I personally supported this initiative, so I did not like that video. But even more recently, due to backlash, he released a response to the backlash and expanded more on his points. So I would like to watch this video and just off the cuff comment on it and see what he has to say. So let's watch. I skipped a little bit because it's just an introduction there. So let's just hit play.
Yeah. So let's discuss the most common requirement of the initiative, which is games have to be left in a functional, playable state. Now, what happens if that game is a online-only live service game? Well, if you want that to stay in a functional, playable state, that means the devs have to release either server binaries or somehow carve off the game to be a single-player experience now. Some way to keep it functional and playable, right?
Yes, and I would have like to add in the first video, Thor said that the Crew is an online-only game and was marketed as an online-only game, but it has a pretty lengthy single-player campaign mode. I have personally played through the Crew's single-player campaign mode just before it closed, and you could play through it completely single player. I barely encountered any players while I was playing it, and it was only in the open world. It has like a drop in, drop out open world. So I would like to address, I would like him to address that point, but as far as I know, he didn't.
Now, many of you are requesting, yes, I should get the server binaries so that I can go and make private servers for this. But that doesn't make a lot of sense in the real world. And the reason why is because it leaves developers open to abuse. So let's explore that a little bit. Let's say that you made...
Okay, this is a very important part. Listen closely.
...your own video game, and you made a live service game. Maybe it's an MMO, maybe it's something else, right? And let's say that I want to monetize that game, but you don't allow monetization of the game by any other party. This makes sense because most creators don't allow for that. You can't just take someone else's art and profit off of it. Normal, right? So then I go, well, how am I going to force you to do this? Under this initiative, you would have to release the server binaries or keep the game in a functional, playable state at end of life. So I hit you with a ton of bots. I hit you with a ton of exploits. I attack your community. I destroy your Reddit. I go after your business. I go everywhere that I possibly can to make this cost as much as it possibly can for you. And it's not hard to do this. We saw the exact same thing happen in TF2 recently. The massive amount of bots that were attacking the game.
Well, you see, the anti-bot problem is a problem of neglect. Team Fortress 2 is a notoriously neglected game. Valve basically let the wolves run the sheep herd on that one. They did not moderate the servers, even though they should be because it's their game. They don't get paid for it anymore, but they still get commissions from selling skins. So the community does pay for the game. It's just in this like non-direct way. And it has been a problem for a while. It has been building. And it's not the makings of one malicious actor. It is the result of many malicious actors. So
this is not infeasible. This is something that is very easily attainable today. And let's say that this goes on long enough that your game dies because you can't afford it anymore. And your studio has to shut down. At end of life, you now have to release those server binaries to keep the game in a functional, playable state. At which point I take those, I create a private server, and I monetize it. And some people have said, well...
Okay. What about Titanfall 2? As far as I know, Titanfall 2 does not have private server support or open binaries or anything like that. And yet, it was brought down and was basically unplayable for a year or something. And the players of Titanfall 2, who were very much dedicated. They played the game after years after it came out. They could not play the game, and they had no recourse, no private service to go to, nothing. They just could not play the game.
Simply don't allow monetization of the server. Well, who's going to enforce that? If you want a government initiative to enforce that, then
And the hackers that ruined Titanfall 2, they didn't ask for money. They were just doing this for fun. They just ruined the game, they made it unplayable, and there was no recourse, no way to play the game on a private server, or I don't know if it has LAN support, but certainly it doesn't have any kind of LAN parties like X Live Kai or something like that. So people just could not play Titanfall. That's a problem. And despite not releasing any private servers, despite keeping the developer unabused, players could not play the game.
that means the government has to build a registry of all of those games and all of that intellectual property that shouldn't be monetized, and then somehow enforce that with no one owning it because those studios have shut down. That's going to be a massive burden. On top of that, if you want to go the other route and say the company has to go and control it, well, what if the company's not around anymore? Is that just able to be monetized now? Again, this was obtained through abuse of the original creator. I don't think that's a good route. And this scenario gets even worse if you do allow monetization, because now I can just kill off your company and then monetize the server and no one will ever come after me. Now it's even more of a problem. So allowing monetization of this work is strictly worse. And for those of you out there that say, oh, this can be done right now, I could just destroy your studio and take your stuff anyway. You could, but this allows a route for it to be legal to do so.
I don't think so. Things that are legally, this would not permit that in any way. Hacking is still illegal. Botting is still illegal. Making your own servers that are monetized is still in the gray area, as far as I know. And yet, there are Grand Theft Auto 5 role-playing servers that do have monetization, that have subscriptions. Same with GTA San Andreas, which did not have multiplayer at all. They just modded it in and made it work. So there is no law still passed, and yet this is going on. And it's really not being stopped very much at all. So this has no play here. This is nonsense. This law, if it were to pass, would change absolutely nothing on this front.
That's the problem. After putting this out publicly and talking to people about it, this specific scenario on both YouTube and Discord and Reddit and a bunch of other locations, I got a couple of takes back. We're going to start with the most extreme position and kind of go from there. So, in the most extreme, people said live service games shouldn't exist at all, and the initiative will kill them off for good, and that's a good thing. Well, you don't get to define what players get to play or not play. You also shouldn't be able to get to define what developers build or don't build. You should not have creative control over the developers, and you should not have control over what is in my Steam library or on my phone. That doesn't make any goddamn sense. Aside from that, the initiative does not purport to kill live service games. It would just make it incredibly difficult to build said games and add a lot of risk to it, which is why I'm bringing all of this up and why I don't support the initiative in the first place. A lot of people don't realize that this will slowly diminish live service games in the market, because it's not an incentive for us to build them anymore, which means you get less multiplayer live experiences. That sucks. I like live service games. I enjoy playing things like Final Fantasy XIV. I enjoy going and playing in games in the past, at least, like League of Legends. These are games that are live service. They require a live service to run, and you shouldn't be able to take that away from people. And if that's your only position on this, not only are you disingenuous in what the initiative is purporting to try to achieve, but you're also aggressively attacking other players instead of trying to fix something. So the next one is that...
Okay, I'm not a fan of live service games, and personally, I wouldn't mind if there were less of them. Live service games are extremely exploitative. They are built not to have some kind of living experience. They're made to have players work games like a job, log in every day, and build an addiction to that specific kind of game, to stretch it out. And to stretch it out means to familiarize with it. And to familiarize means open them up to spending. That is why Fortnite is free, because they have a battle pass. That's why so many games have battle passes, so that you would log in every day and play the game. And since you play the game, you can stumble on a skin that you think looks nice, or maybe you want to boost your XP. And of course, there's always a store button for that. That is why live service games are built. It's not because developers suddenly develop this creative multiplayer streak that they always want to make games super social. No, it's because multiplayer games uh, they boost monetization. Of course, multiplayer games often require someone else playing with someone else, so co-op or something. If the game is paid, that would encourage additional copies to be bought for your friends and stuff, or uh, to have your friends also play these games on a regular basis and stumble onto the monetizable store on a regular basis. Destiny 2 went free for this exact reason. It has a store called Eververse. It gained it in Destiny. It was in Destiny 1, and it was heavily criticized back then. And when Destiny 2 initially released as a paid game, it was heavily criticized. But criticism has kind of died down. People get angry, but then they kind of get tired of being angry. But the Eververse is still there. And now with the free Destiny 2, it's easier to access and easier to monetize than ever.
That this is about games preservation, and that it needs to happen to preserve these types of games for future generations and for everyone to always have forever. But I would argue that this isn't actually preserving these games. Social games, such as, let's say, Apex Legends, require a number of players to be in the match at the same time so that you can have an experience that is only able to be obtained
Okay,
through
I'll speed this
lots
up
of
a
players
little bit,
interacting.
if you don't
Right?
mind.
It's a multiplayer game. You need a bunch of people. How many of you have felt negatively when an MMO dies or when a live service game dies? Oh, dead game. There's only 5 people online. Why would I play that? So why would you want to preserve a game in that state? That doesn't make any sense to me. You want to take down these live service games, put them up on a private server, and then play it with a couple of people. You're not bringing it back at its height. You're not taking a snapshot of what the game actually is. You're making it limp on in a way that doesn't make any sense. That's not preservation. And for those that may...
That is preservation. You're preserving the game. You don't preserve the experience of a game at launch, but guess what? Games like Unreal 1, are preserved, but of course you can't get an experience of being a little 11-year-old boy getting a Pentium 2 computer and a new Unreal disc and playing it on your old TV with all of your old friends. Does that mean that the game is not preserved? No, the game is preserved, the files are preserved, the game is playable. Well, and getting other players to play it is an entirely different issue. The Calling 2 didn't have any private service, and yet it died very quickly, and you couldn't play the same game, at least according to what Thor is trying to depict. You were basically playing a different game a week after release because it died so quickly and there was not enough players. So that's entirely silly. You could also say that World of Warcraft is not preserved because some players left the game, and now the lobby and the cities look different than they were in 2007. But that's not the point. The point that this game is playable and you can play it. Yes, of course, it's not the same as at its peak, but it could never be. That's just time. That's why a ridiculous, not even pie in the sky, but just like time travel Doctor Strange type of requirement. Um, and it's incredibly ridiculous. And of course, the initiative does not even try to even think to ask for that. They're not asking for much. It's you are asking for too much just to deny them. That's silly.
Stop there and go, but private servers going to have a lot of players. Look at all the ones for World of Warcraft. Again, we talked about that. It opens up a route for abuse to the developers, so that is not a solution. And the last take that I got from it
is a solution. There are opening of abuse. There is abuse being perpetrated right now. Apex Legends service recently got hacked so badly that the hackers downloaded cheats on a pro player's computer. That's how bad it was. Apex Legends does not have a private server, and yet the abuse occurred. GTA 5 servers still have monetized our role-playing service. They are not official. Rockstar has not released any private service, and yet the abuse still perpetrates. That's what I'm saying. This law going into effect would not change that. It would not encourage the abuse, at least not by much, and it would change basically nothing. This is a non-point.
Yes, he is. And it's the most reasonable to me. This is an initiative. It's not a law. Why are you upset? Just wait. I'm not going to wait. And the reason I'm not going to wait is because I see the start of this conversation not making sense. It's not including the actual developer side of the conversation. It's not showing the trials and problems that this could arise inside of the gaming industry for people who are actually making the games you play. I don't have any reason to be quiet about that. And many other developers aren't going to be able to speak on this. As I explained before, it's really easy to lose your job if you're working at a major studio and try to speak out of turn on something like this, especially with something people are so passionate about. Doesn't make any sense to stay quiet. And it also doesn't make any sense to wait until it's in a...
I don't think you are a voice for the developers, especially if with the position that you have. I think if a developer, say of Destiny 2, says, "Oh, we can't release we can't release our service because we would lose money," I think he would be fired for that. I don't think that developers get fired by protecting companies. And these live services are mostly run by large companies like Blizzard, like Activision, like Bungie, like Valve. These are big companies. And what they don't like is when developers speak for the consumer and not for the company. I don't think Blizzard would mind if their developers said that, "Oh no, World of Warcraft servers can't be privated. That's illegal, that's bad, you should only play on official servers." No, that's silly, again.
Different form when I see that it has so many problems with the language as it is currently written. I should be able to be talking about this. In fact, I should be talking about this. I am a content creator specifically that is a game developer that has worked in this industry for 20 years. This is my wheelhouse. This is what I do. So for those who are calling for me to just be silent and sit in the corner, no. With all that being said, I do think there's a consumer protection thing that we can fix here. It's just not really what the initiative is about. I think that if you're going to buy a live service game, you shouldn't be told you're buying the game. You shouldn't be told that you're purchasing the game. You should be told explicitly that you are purchasing a license to that game. The reason why is because that license needs to be revoked anytime that you are cheating the game and damaging the play experience of other players. While this is written in the TOS and the EULA, it's usually not clearly defined at point of sale. Or they throw a giant TOS in front of you and it doesn't really do anything because people skip past it. If at point of sale it says specifically, there's specific language stating that you are either leasing or purchasing a license or anything along those lines, that you're not actually buying the game directly, I think it would go a long way to informing consumers of what they're doing and protect them from some of these business practices that they didn't realize they were engaging in. That makes a lot more sense to me than force all developers to leave the game in a functional playable state. And that's about it. That's all I really wanted to talk about with this. I hope that's clarified some things for some of you and some of the dangers that this can cause as it is currently written. If you're still mad about this, not much I can do about it.
So, what you're proposing is just having a big plaque of, "You are buying a license, you do not actually own this game," and that's not gonna help anything. You see, people need their rights protected. They don't need more awareness. People who are pro this initiative, they already have awareness, and they already know that companies try to do this rigmarole way. They say, "Oh, you're actually buying a license here in this EULA. You are actually buying a license that we can revoke at any time." That's one of the issues. At any time is when. So you can buy a game and it could die tomorrow, or just have the publisher revoke the license because they just don't want to support the game anymore. That's abuse. That's real abuse. That's someone taking your money and then just taking the game away. And that's not the way to go. What is necessary is qualifying games as a good. And if they're not a good, they're a subscription, like World of Warcraft, and that's fine. But games that are bought as a one-time purchase must be treated as a one-time purchase. Alright, that's it.